Hey everyone, welcome on to Branded. This week I want to talk about whenever we're making a pivot and how to really ensure that that pivot is going to pay off for you. So, the title of this week's episode is The Pivot Pays Off When You Listen to What Your Clients Are Really Asking For. Now, this is a really fun topic because this is something that you can immediately go and take a look at your own business and really give yourself a nice, good look at, are you really doing this? Are you utilizing one of the most powerful business tools, such as listening, in your business? So, think about this. What if your next offer, your next breakthrough, your next shift that you're making in your business wasn't about trying harder? What if it was actually about listening deeper, listening more to what's already happening around you? So, in this episode, we're going to explore that concept and what happens when you really tune into your audience, you trust the words that they're speaking to you, and then you boldly respond in alignment to what they're asking for. So, like I mentioned, this is something that really gets overlooked in all the strategy talk of what you're going to do next for your business. How often do you hear coaches or people giving advice that says, how about you just listen more? How about you really practice some deep listening to see what your audience is already saying? It's just one of those things that's it's one of those simple truths that we tend to just forget about and busy ourselves with something more complicated, right? That tends to happen more times than not. I also want to kind of tie this into a real life scenario. I actually have a client of mine who has been actively practicing really deep listening with her client base and her audience. And she is creating offers that are so aligned and they're exactly what her audience is asking for. So, as we dive into this episode, here's a couple questions that I would suggest having in the back of your mind, right? It's things to think about. Are you listening to your people? Like, really, are you listening to your people? Are you listening to what they're repeating? Because you'll find patterns in what they're saying if you're really listening. And it's not necessarily about what's on the surface of what they're saying. What's underneath that? Like, what is the actual meaning of what they're saying to you? So these are three kind of questions that they're very, very broad, but they also can be very, very niche down into something really, really micro. And that's what deep listening plus a bold response can do for your business. So, why do we think that listening is it's the most underrated business tool? Why? It's something we do every day. It's something that we honestly can do without even thinking about it. And I think that's where we sort of start to take it for granted a little bit, is that we want to just say, "Oh, well, let me just tune out the noise." Well, sometimes the noise, when it's coming from your audience, it's not noise. That is strategy. That is a new offer being built. That is your next marketing push. So, when we talk about tuning out the noise, you really have to decide for yourself, what is noise for you? What is something? And noise is something that's going to distract you from the task at hand. So, something like scrolling mindlessly, for me, that's noise. That's useless. It's a useless way to spend my time. Now, if I'm on my socials and I'm looking at what my clients are doing and how they're representing their brand and the things that are happening on their websites and the offers they're rolling out, that for me is direct information. And having conversations with my clients and asking them, what is it that you're struggling with right now in your business? How can we navigate that space together and create something together that helps you boost your business and listen to your audience better? And also, in turn, is boosting my business because that's the nature of what I do. So, for you and your business, you have to decide, what does noise really look like, sound like? And where are you maybe cutting off that opportunity for listening very deeply to your audience and what they're telling you they want from you? So, here's a really fantastic example of how a client of mine, she literally turned feedback into a really powerful offer. So, my client, Jenny Potter, she has been with me for a couple of years now. We have created so many beautiful things together, and she's the type of person I absolutely love working with because she has that very like meet it with curiosity, not judgment, that playful side. She loves to create for her business, and she's not afraid to make a mistake and be like, well, that didn't work. Let's try something different. And so it's really fun to work together. And when she came to me a couple months ago and said, hey, I'm putting together this new offer, she said, I am putting together this new offer because this is what my people keep telling me. That is exactly what this episode is about. Listening to your people and then responding boldly with something that they are literally asking for. So, Jenny, she's a coach, she's an author, she's a speaker. She guides people through the process of learning how to stop self sabotaging, basically. She's written 2 books, she has all sorts of courses, she does one on one coaching, and now she's rolling out a brand new offer. And it is so beautiful to see how she is listening to the people that she's serving and at the same time creating something new for a whole new group of people that aren't even working with her yet. So she kept hearing from her existing clients, I wish I just had you in my back pocket when all of my sabotage beliefs showed up. And she kept hearing this over and over and over again. So she could have just been like, well, isn't that nice to hear? They just love me so much. Isn't that nice to hear? They wish they had me, at all times. But instead of being like, oh, pat on the back, my clients love me, she thought, well, maybe there's something I can do with this. Maybe there's something I can actually offer to these people that are telling me, I wish I had you in my back pocket when all of these like sabotage habits started showing up. Because a sabotage habit, right, that can show up at 2 a.m., it can show up at 12 in the afternoon, it can show up at 6 a.m., and she's not available to them at their beck and call. So instead, she decides, well, let me think about this. Let me create something based on what they're telling me they actually really want from me. So she turned that feedback into an entirely new offer. And it's something that it allowed her to be in the moment with her clients who need her most. And it's so beautiful to see that, like, she didn't have to do this crazy rebrand. She didn't have to do hours and hours and hours of work to create something brand new and start from scratch. She literally could pull from all of her existing knowledge, her existing courses, all of her coaching experience that she's had with all of these clients to create something that she could then offer to everybody at a really reasonable price, and they can access her at any time they need. It's so smart. And this all stemmed from her listening very deeply to her clients and then responding boldly with something that aligned with exactly what they were asking for. And the reason this works is because it's not created in a vacuum. It's created from quite literally a sense of demand. So if you're not listening, you're not going to recognize what that demand is. You're just going to be guessing. And I mean, honestly, marketing that is stemmed from guessing is a waste of your time. Offers that are created from guessing is a waste of your time. Now, every now and then you might get lucky with something and, make a buck, but then you see it quickly fizzle out. Why? Because maybe you weren't really listening to what your audience wanted. So that's my next question. Are you actually listening to your audience? What words keep showing up in your DMs from them, or your emails, or your client calls that you're having? What are these patterns that you're seeing? And are you brushing it off as simply like, okay, yeah, that's feedback, or oh, that's super great to hear, instead of actually taking it seriously and being like, what can I create from this? what is the solution that I can now put together based on what I just heard? Because when you think about it that way, even if it is like, let's say it's something negative, you have a client feedback that's something that you perceive as negative. Well, instead of seeing it as negative, look at it from the other perspective of, okay, well, what's the solution that I can provide in order to shift how they're feeling? And now sometimes you may not have an answer for it, and that's fine, right? You don't have to have an answer for absolutely everything. But if you're not doing that deep listening and truly actually listening and then responding with some sort of solution, some sort of idea, some sort of new path, then what they're saying to you is just falling flat, right? It's just falling on deaf ears because you're not actually really listening. So think about this, like, what would change if you started seeing these moments of praise or moments of frustration or even a moment of confusion? What if you started seeing them as like these little road signs pointing towards your next aligned move? What if? So reframe it a little bit, because more times than not, it's not really a messaging issue. It's not really a niche issue. It's usually a listening issue. So if you feel like there's somewhere in your business that there could be more alignment with your client, more alignment with your audience who's yet to become a client, listen more. It is one of your absolute most powerful business tools. And me included, I forget sometimes too. Just like breathing deeply, you forget to listen deeply. It happens. We're human. We get busy. We like to overcomplicate our lives and we like to stay in that little bubble of overcomplicating things, but we don't have to be there. And that's exactly why I wanted to record this episode as a really gentle reminder that something really powerful can come from doing something as simple as listening to the people you're already serving. So, a couple ways that you can start to practice this for yourself, because like I said in the beginning, this is the easiest, like, powerful business tool that you can start implementing immediately. It's something you already know how to do. So, next time you're having like a client conversation, whether it's in the DMs, you're on a phone call, whatever it is, right? Record and then review what your clients are saying, right? What language are they using? What kind of patterns are showing up? And this is really great. I mean, these can be like bullet point, brain dump style notes, right? You could voice memo it to yourself, write it in your notes app, whatever, but put it somewhere where you can record the information, because then you're going to start to see a pattern. So just like Jenny, she started to see a pattern of people saying, I wish I had you in my back pocket anytime my sabotage beliefs were showing up. And she knew that she couldn't be everywhere for everyone at any time, right? That's impossible. She's got her own boundaries when she takes calls and things like that. But rather than limiting the access to her, she just cracked it wide open and created this brand new offer. And it was all because she recognized a pattern. So if you're not really recording what your clients are saying to you and these conversations you're having with them, you're not going to really recognize the pattern quite so easily because you'll just forget about it, right? So instead of just remembering what they're saying, try to capture it, put it down somewhere. And I promise you'll start to notice the patterns that show up. And that very well could be your next offer, your next breakthrough, your next pivot that is paying off. What you want to do next is really validate with curiosity. So when you start to notice this pattern, right? Let's say Jenny started to notice this pattern. What did she do next? She's validating this pattern with curiosity. She starts to explore it. Well, what can this really mean for me and my business? What can this mean for my clients? What does that journey look like for them if they start participating in this new offer? What does this journey look like for me as the business owner if they start participating in this new offer? So instead of jumping right to a conclusion, she's asking her clients, well, tell me more about that. Like when you say, I wish I had you in my back pocket at any time I needed you, what do you mean by that? what do you really mean by that, right? Peel back the onion a little bit, because it may mean that they just, for a fleeting moment, they just need a quick little pick me up. Hey, you're doing great, keep going. But it may mean that they're actually spiraling into something that could last weeks, right? It could turn into a moment of sabotage, can turn into weeks of sabotage. We all know this. I think we've all experienced that. And so she's asking her clients, okay, well, let me now get a little curious about what you just told me. So she recognized the pattern, then she got curious about it and dug deeper and is like, okay, tell me more about this. What do you mean by this? Let's explore it. And then you respond, right? You respond without overthinking it. You respond by simply testing the idea. Maybe you put a poll out on your socials. Maybe you send an email out and you sort of ask how your audience would receive this. Because obviously, if you're having conversations with a couple clients and you've got an email list of thousands, why not poll your audience? See what they have to say about it. Send out a little test of the idea. Straight up make the offer, right? Do a launch of like a beta version of your offers or of the little pivot that you're trying to make. But respond with clarity and like understanding and care for what you're creating, because it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to have that intention and that sort of clarity of purpose of why you're doing it. And the reason you're doing it is because you just listened to your audience and they told you they wanted it. So, doing these three things where you sort of record the data, right? You listen deeply, then you get a little curious about what does this really mean? And then you respond boldly with something that's in alignment with exactly what they just said. This is how you get a pivot that pays off. So, a couple of other examples for you, in case Jenny's didn't hit home for you, even though I think it's pretty great because it's so simple, but it's so just aligned. So, for someone like me, let's say the business I'm doing, if someone tells me, well, I just want someone to tell me what to post, like, I don't know what to do on social media, I just need someone to tell me what to post. I would probably respond with something like a content calendar. I would get on a phone call with them and say, hey, let's break down your week. Let's talk about the things you're actually doing every day. Let's talk about the client conversations you're having. Let's talk about the meals that you're prepping. Let's talk about, the things you're doing day to day. Are you going for walks? Are you cooking meals? Like, what's happening in your day? What parts of that can you incorporate into your business model, depending on what kind of business you have? And then let's create a content calendar out of it. Now, I'm too busy to actually manage other people's social media, but that doesn't mean I can't help them figure it out, right? That doesn't mean I can't help them feel more confident in their own processes. So if someone tells me, hey, I just don't know what to post, and I keep hearing that over and over, guess what my next freebie might be? A content calendar, right? Like, this is deep listening plus responding boldly. And most of my free offers have always been in response to something I'm hearing, something I'm seeing. I recognize this pattern and I go, oh, okay, let me go ahead and make this thing because people need it. So, like, let's say someone says, well, I wish I just knew how to create a brand that like really feels like me. That's hard. That's a bold, broad question. Creating a brand that really feels like me. Now, in the beginning, it feels hard. But the more you do the work and the more you like really start to dig in, it actually feels like the easiest thing you've ever done. You're like, how did I not see this sooner? Now, the offer I would tie into that sort of need is something like a discovery workbook, something that allows people to do that inner reflection and that inner work that you could do on a client phone call. Or you could simply say, well, here's this really fantastic, questionnaire, and it's going to help you dive right in to exactly what you're looking for. And sometimes you need somebody else to help pull those things out of you, but more times than not, you already know the answer and you just need to be pointed boop, in the right direction, right? So these are examples of deep listening in action. And I guarantee you have very similar examples for your own business that maybe you're just brushing off as like, whatever. That's cool. Nice to know. Good to know. Good to hear. Whatever. I don't have time for that. But what if? Are you also saying, oh, I don't have time, to really listen to what my people are saying? But at the same time, are you sitting there going, oh, what's my next offer going to be? Oh, gosh, I just can't think of it. I just don't know. What do my people want? I bet they're talking to you. Are you listening? So, to wrap up today, when you're really rooted in deep listening, your business becomes responsive, not reactive. You build a brand that starts to evolve in real time, literally in real time, because it's grounded in this sense of you're telling me this, now I'm going to create this for you. So there's this sense of co creation between you and your audience and you and your clients, right? Because your audience is becoming your clients because you're listening to them. And that is the beautiful part of this. This is how really powerful businesses grow. They don't do it by guessing what their market wants and, all of that. They do it by listening to the people they're already serving. So I ask, what are your clients telling you right now? Is there something that they've been saying over and over that you haven't quite answered yet? I would challenge you this week to listen a little more closely to what your clients and your audience are really saying, and then respond boldly. Whether that's with a post, whether that's with an offer, whether that's with a little bit of a pivot or some sort of shift in your business, I challenge you, listen deeply and respond boldly, because this is how you will get a pivot that pays off. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode. If you've got someone who's in the midst of a pivot, creating an offer, any of that, share this episode with them, because maybe it will give them the little nudge they need to listen a little deeper and respond a little more boldly. I'll see you next week for a brand new episode. Bye, guys. Thank you so much for listening to Branded, the podcast. Please rate and review. And for more information, visit socialjanemedia.com. I'll see you soon.